Welcome back to Questing Beast, I'm Ben. Today we're taking a look at Dungeon Inc., which is a new take on the dungeon crawling genre for old school role-playing games. The basic premise of this game is that you are in a mega dungeon, but rather than being the standard adventurers looting the place for treasure and for experience, you are the monsters. But you're not just any monsters, you are part of a corporation that is running this whole place. Think of it a little bit like a person working behind the scenes at Disneyland. You are creating this illusion of this horribly deadly environment, and it is very deadly, but really it's all being set up to attract adventurers and to kill them and extract all of their treasure and their loot. Everything is really a facade. The corporation will occasionally clean out one of these little mini dungeons within the mega dungeon and then re-theme it and redecorate it and try and attract a new type of adventurer to come visit. It's a very fun and creative premise, and it allows for types of adventures and types of scenarios that you don't normally see in mega dungeons. The back of the book summarizes it really well here. Be a monster, kill adventurers, collect your paycheck, become employee of the month, date Daisy the Medusa from accounting. Because when you're not doing your normal job, keeping up this dungeon, killing adventurers, you can also play out what's going on behind the scenes as part of a kind of office comedy. You can engage in office politics, try and work your way up the ranks, socialize with other employees, try and get favors from different departments. It's all in here. Now, this is, I believe, a second edition of Dungeon Inc. This one was redesigned and published by the Merry Mushmen, who have also done Knock and a bunch of other really great adventures. The whole book looks really pretty. It's extremely well laid out, very easy to read, and it features some awesome artwork. Here's a kind of sketch of the layout of the mega dungeon. It's this enormous tower extending far up into the sky, and the actual corporation is running this thing pretty high up here. But there's this shaft that goes down the center of it that allows you to restock and repopulate the different levels of this dungeon that you're running, which are above the ground in this area and then very deep below the ground going down below. And it's very important that adventurers never figure out that this whole thing is kind of an illusion being run by this corporation. They must never find the secret offices that you work in. The characters that you play are not called PCs, but are called hosts, because you are here to welcome the adventurers into the dungeon, where you're going to kill them. The adventurers themselves, of course, are called clients, and there's also denizens of this dungeon, which are people that are not working for the dungeon. They're NPCs, they're monsters, often unintelligent, that have been populated throughout this place to add to the flavor and to add to the danger. The whole dungeon is broken down into smaller little mini dungeons that each have their own theme. These are all called areas. I'm not sure if that's the best term for them. A lot of them are high up in the tower, so that would kind of make sense, but also many of them are deep underground where it makes a bit less sense. The book starts out explaining the general organization of Dungeon Incorporated. You have the Overseer-in-Chief. This is the big boss, Mr. Noir, who runs the entire place. Perhaps he is a demon of some sort. The two main divisions are the Strategy Division and the Operations Division. Then we have departments under those. I love how each department has their own director. They have their own motivational posters and slogans and their buzzwords that they're always using when they talk to you. And then each of these departments is broken down even further into the different sections. Like the Treasury Department has the accounting section and the patron relations section. And each of these sections has profiles of different NPCs, different colleagues that you can interact with, favors that you can call in if you do enough jobs for them, and even little missions that they might want you to go on. Like maybe in the internal relations section, there is a leader of denizens who has begun conquering the areas around him. This risks destabilizing entire levels of the dungeon, and internal relations needs an intrepid team to escort their negotiator to the up-and-coming war leader. But the leader turns out to be a former Dungeon Inc. employee who was left for dead months ago, and they have an axe to grind. One great thing about this book is just the amount of information it gives you. Tons of people, tons of adventure hooks. You're never going to be at a loss when designing your own adventures. There's the reception section, exploration, reconditioning for when you need to clear out an old area and remodel it for something new. Now, while you could use any OSR rule set to run this setting pretty easily, it does come with its own set of rules. And we'll take a look at that right after this word from our sponsor. This video is sponsored by the new Pirate Borg map collection, which is funding right now on Kickstarter. This incredible trove has 100 plus dry and wet erase maps featuring every map you'll ever need for your seafaring campaign. It includes every kind of ship from sloops to ships of the line. It's got sea monsters, shipwrecks, ruins, reefs, islands, docks, temples, and way, way more. You can even get reusable clear stickers for making your own special modifications to them, and the Pirate Borg Encounter Atlas, which fleshes out all of the maps with enemies, quest items, and tons of NPCs. Pirate Borg is my favorite version of the Mork Borg system, so click on the link in the description below to get your hands or hooks on it today. The basic core of these rules is very much old school D&D. You have your 6 basic ability scores, you're rolling 3d6 for them, and generally when you're making checks, you're trying to roll under your ability score on a d20. However, there's a number of tweaks to this. For example, there is traits that everyone has, 3 different traits, and one of them must be your personality. These things can add advantage when they come into play and they fit what you're trying to do. You're also going to choose 2 sections that owe you a delta 4 and one that owes you a delta 6 favor. Whenever you see that delta with a number, that's referring to usage dice. That's something that you see in a number of old school games where instead of tracking the exact number of something that you have, if you want it to be a little bit more abstract, you roll a die, and if you roll too low, like a 1 or a 2 on it, then the size of the die degrades down to the next size. And if it degrades down far enough, then it's gone permanently. It doesn't have classes exactly, but you can choose to have martial training, specialist training, or magical training, which of course is going to allow you to basically be a fighter, a thief, or a wizard. Although really any character can kind of do anything, like anyone can cast magic spells, but if you have magical training, it's going to be much easier to do so and cost you much fewer hit points because you'll lose hit points whenever you cast spells. Lots of great concrete things you can add to your character, like a personal effects table if you want to get some weird stuff to make your character feel a little bit more distinct, like a mummified chicken that lays an egg every morning, or a princess's robe, all in gold and silver thread. I love how instead of levels, you have seniority ranks and a living standard die, because if things go well, you can actually level up in the company and get better living quarters. You're also going to be making some NPCs that you're going to interact with a lot. Your direct supervisor, the bursar, the cartographer, and the employee of the month. And you're going to create positive and negative connections with those people for all of your PCs. Your supervisor is the person who actually gives you new missions. The bursar is going to be giving you all of your supplies for those missions. The cartographer is important because you are going to have a map of the little dungeon, the area that you're going to be going to. The employee of the month is the current star employee at the company, and you are always vying to take their place. There's a section here on the usage dice, or risk dice as they are called. And yes, they degrade on a 1, 2, or 3, not a 1, 2 like I said before. You can use these things for resources. I'm a little bit less of a fan of that because I'd rather just track that directly. We can always use them for risks or for durations. Now, the combat rules are meant to be a bit more open and a bit more cinematic than you typically see in old school D&D. It's much less rigid. The round basically goes, you start the round, and then the GM declares all of the enemy intentions. You know what all of the clients and all of the denizens that you're working against are going to be doing. Then you go around the table and the players decide what they are going to do. And if they're doing something that's risky, you're going to roll a die. Typically, you're trying to roll a d20 under an ability score. And that is going to determine the outcome of the entire conflict, including if you're doing something against another NPC. Everything is usually resolved in just one roll. At the end of the round, if there's any monsters who still have to go and whose action wasn't resolved by one of the player actions, then they all get to take a turn. The goal here is to create scenes that are dynamic and quick rather than very precise and tactical. Maneuvers are handled by just doing an ability score check. If they fail, then it's turned against you in some way. Now, the way that armor works is something that I'm not too much of a fan of just because it's a little bit complicated. Basically how it works is you have a usage die or a risk die for your armor. Let's say it's a D8. You roll that at the start of an encounter, and if it's a 5, that means that your armor can soak up 5 points of damage in this encounter. The next encounter, you would roll it again to see how much it can soak. And if you ever roll a 1, 2, or 3, as usual, the size of the die would tick down. So a D8 would become a D6. And if a D4 ever tried to get lower than that, it would just disappear and your armor is broken. This is a system that seems like it would work okay. It's just maybe more steps for armor than I would want to do. Morale checks also use these risk dice, which slowly degrade over time. I like how there is a big table for morale. So it's not just whether you run away or you don't run away. There's more specific things that can happen. Like if they roll really high, they actually get better at fighting. And if they roll really low, then they're going to flee. Maybe the enemies roll a feint, so they retreat to set up a trap or an ambush. That's really fun. Or they fight defensively. They haven't surrendered, but now they're backing up slowly, looking for cover and just trying to protect themselves. This sort of thing is fun because it makes combat a lot more interesting and you get a lot more variety in terms of the kinds of combats that you have. There's also plenty of extended examples of character creation and combat and how to apply all of these rules, and I really do appreciate that. It is a fairly deadly game. When you get down to 0 HP, then you just make a con check. If you succeed, then you're still alive with 1 hit point, and if you fail, then you're dead. Magic is fairly freeform in that you are definitely encouraged to design your own spells and propose them to the DM. Casting spells requires you to actually lose hit points, so something you definitely can't do very many times, especially near the beginning of the game. Spellcasters are able to spend more hit points on spells because they have a magical artifact that absorbs some of that for them. Now, very helpfully, there is a section here helping you to determine how many hit points is appropriate for the kind of spell effect that someone is using. And there's also a table of example spells, so you can kind of compare spells that people come up with to this table to figure out what is appropriate. Now, I should point out that besides losing hit points, you also do have to make a spellcasting check, usually with intelligence, although it could also be wisdom or charisma, depending on the kind of character that you are. So that's pretty punishing. You could actually try and cast a spell, you lose some hit points, and then maybe nothing happens. But if that does happen, then you can use the Chaos Risk die to try and eke some effect out of that spell that's fizzled. If you roll high on this table, then maybe the effect just is delayed a little bit, or maybe it's even more powerful than you expected. But the more you use the Chaos Risk die, the more it's going to degrade, and the more likely you're going to be rolling lower and lower numbers on this. All the way down to an error where the spell's effect is inverted or dramatically changed, or the magic functions, but it transforms the character and causes long-term repercussions like deformities or scars. Character advancement is not based on XP or recovering treasure, instead it's based on how many missions that you do. To rank up, a character must successfully complete a number of missions equal to their current rank. One thing to watch out for, though, is suspicion, because over the course of their careers, hosts are going to accumulate suspicion points whenever you do things that are not quite kosher. Get too many suspicion points and get reprimanded too many times, and the company might decide that you need to be taken out. The basic structure of a mission is first you will get a briefing from your supervisor who may give you some context and more details, but they might not. They might just tell you, go here and do this, and give you a map. You're going to get some supplies from the bursar. You're going to head to the hub, maybe get some rumors, try and milk a few of your colleagues, trying to get them to tell you a bit more about what's going on in the destination that you're heading to. You're going to find the secret door that leads to your actual mission area. Get in, do what you need to do. Oftentimes it's kill one of the clients, but not always, and then get out again. At the end, you have to debrief, report back to your supervisor, and try to gain Employee of the Month if you've done well enough. If you've done really badly, you can receive cautions, and you don't want to receive too many of those. Now, one thing that's really great is that this book also comes with a separate pamphlet that is full of 10 missions to get you started. We'll look at that once we get through this book. But the basic structure is that you're going to get a map like this one that is actually labeled with, handwritten notes. This is the sort of thing that you can print out or photocopy and hand to the players because they're actually going to be using it to navigate. There's plenty of great supplies you can pick up on your way out, though anything that is loaned to you does have to be returned in good condition at the end of the mission. One of the last sections of the book is the office and daily life, because in between these commando missions, 2 different parts of the mega dungeon, you can have these little interludes where you have behind the scenes moments with what's going on at Dungeon Inc. You can head on over to the cantina and roll up some weird food to eat. If you as a GM aren't sure what to do, well, here's D66 colleague interactions. Maybe you find some protest literature under your mattress and right when the managers burst in for a routine inspection. Maybe a secret company-wide game of assassins is organized. Buy in for 10 gold pieces, the pot goes to the last one standing, non-lethal weapons only. Maybe you want to visit a tavern like the Silver Goblet or the Butcher's Table. Maybe you want to go shopping at Bruiser's Bazaar or Master Marlin's Emporium, or just participate in different forms of entertainment at the major festivals. There's even a section on designing your own missions, which is really great for new GMs. For example, you want to come up with a marketing concept. This is the reason why adventurers would be drawn to this part of the mega dungeon. What is its theme? How does it attract clients? What kind of clients? Figure out what your objective is, create a map and stock it, but remember to not anticipate what the players are going to do. This is definitely an old school inspired game, so you're not supposed to be creating any kind of railroaded adventures. You're creating a scenario, a situation, and then the players are going to interact with that however they want, and you are there to arbitrate and just see how things go. Are you coming up empty with ideas for a mission? Well, there's a nice random table right here where you can roll up mission surprises, like part of the area was taken over by several groups of clients who are using it as a forward base. Or maybe there's a new objective, like an artifact must be recovered from the area. This is an extra objective that was added by a bigwig who covets the item. So maybe there's some office politics that's tied in there. But it isn't just about individual missions, although it can be. If you want to link things together into a bigger campaign, you need kind of an overarching thread that can be played out over the long term. Like maybe one possible thread is a worm in the apple, where it's about discovering a large embezzlement scheme, finding out who is behind it, and turning in the guilty party. Or maybe it's about the secrets of Mr. Noir, who is the head honcho at this whole place. Why has he built this mega dungeon? Why does he keep wanting to dig deeper and deeper? You can slowly investigate that and figure it out. And each of these threads isn't just a paragraph, it is always fleshed out with lots of ideas and ways that it could be developed over the long term. Our last section is Dungeon People, and that's full of just plenty of NPCs, colleagues, denizens, monsters, with all of their stats for you to drag and drop right into your adventures. One final point is that the bright outside is what everyone calls the actual land outside of the dungeon, where people such as you do not normally go. You could still have adventures there, though, venturing out into the brightness, perhaps disguising yourself as a more normal kind of creature, and doing overland travel to do missions and maybe bring things back to the dungeon, or perhaps chase down clients that weren't supposed to escape. Next, let's take a look at this mission booklet, which has 10 missions for characters with seniority rank 1 through 6. And these are frankly a lot of fun. Like a lot of the adventures that I've seen published by the Merry Mushmen, it's very well laid out, very easy to read, and there's a lot of variety in terms of the kinds of things that you're doing. It starts out with a very basic mission where your goal is just to eliminate the clients. An adventuring party has snuck in through here and they're trying to reach this wyvern's nest. You are popping in through a secret entrance over here and you are following them and you're trying to take them out. But how you go about doing that is really up to you. Even a simple adventure structure like this is really interesting because it's so different from the way you would approach a typical D&D dungeon. Everything is kind of turned on its head. You know the layout of the dungeon ahead of time. You know its threats, or at least you know most of them. Instead of the normal process of slowly moving from room to room, trying to avoid danger and trying to extract treasure, everything is turned into a hunt where you're stalking someone and trying to turn the different features of the dungeon against them and pin them down and take them out. That by itself is a really refreshing take on D&D. But there's plenty of other ways to shake this up as well. For example, there's this mission, No Such Thing as Bard Publicity. In this case, an adventuring party has already entered and most of them are dead. The only person that's left is a single bard who is trapped in a pit over here. In this case, you're not sent in to kill him because the higher-ups at the organization have realized that this bard would actually be really great publicity for the dungeon. If he manages to escape with a bunch of treasure, then he's going to head to the neighboring villages and tell everyone about the dungeon and get more people to come, which is exactly what you want. So your mission here is to disguise yourself as probably more like normal adventurers, find that bard, and exfiltrate him without him dying. And that's more difficult than it sounds because there's automated dangers, there's other denizens who aren't part of Dungeon Inc. that have settled in here that are still quite dangerous, and you're going to have to figure out how to navigate all that. Or here's another twist. Maybe you're sent into this area to kill the last surviving member of a group, but you get in there and you can't find him. There's a big tribe of hobgoblins that have settled in this hall, but there's no sign of this one remaining adventurer. You search the whole place, and you can't figure out where he is. Well, it turns out that he was a wizard, and he has disguised himself with an illusion spell, so he looks like one of the hobgoblins. He hasn't left yet because he is still trying to find that secret treasure vault. By investigating everything thoroughly, you can start figuring out that he's still present and figure out who he is. Maybe you're sent into an area to rescue some coworkers who were sent there earlier but have disappeared. And once you get there, you find out that this area has actually partially collapsed into a different area. So there's two different little mini dungeons with completely different themes that are now being pushed together and interacting with each other. Overall, what I love about Dungeon Inc. and what all of these adventures demonstrate is not just that the theme and the idea of this book is funny, because it is a funny idea where you're kind of like in the TV show The Office, but you're also in D&D. The thing that's most interesting for me is how it takes these standard structures and tropes from D&D and allows you to play out missions and adventures that you don't normally get to play out. It takes the play patterns of D&D and turns it on its head, which makes it very refreshing and gives you a whole new take on the genre. The books look great, they're really fun to read, they're easy to understand, they are packed with useful ideas and useful content that you can use to make your own adventures. This is exactly the kind of creativity that I love to see in new OSR games, so this is a big recommendation for me. If you want to check it out for yourself, as usual, I will put a link down in the description below. I believe the Merry Mushmen also has a new American store where you don't have to wait for it to be shipped from Europe, which I think will be very nice for a lot of people in North America. And let me know in the comments below what you think about this concept. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.